James, now you are in the host. Please go ahead, James. Now it is your turn. Please
All
mute
right.
everybody. Please mute everybody. Come on, somebody mute everyone. Say please. All right, James, you good to go.
So I just muted everybody. Let me see. Where's 105 people? Oh my God, that's amazing. I'm trying to find you where you are. What up? I'm trying to unmute yourself. Okay. Oh, there you go. I'll give you a co-host. So
that's fine.
You can help me Zoom control that, right? Okay, perfect. Well, first of all, I've seen so many familiar faces. I see Deepak there, I see Ita, I see Ram, I see Gobinda. Didn't get a chance to see Gobinda in Houston last week, right? But we met a couple times over Zoom. Wow, lots of old friends and new friends, right? This is amazing. I love this relationship that we're building here, and I'd like to thank Udaf as well, for helping our team with our recruiting, and hopefully we have something to show for. But today I got something interesting for you. Udaf said, I said, what do you want me to train on? I said, Udaf said, so just deep dive in how to use IUL, right? So let me see a show of hands. If you have IUL or one account or two accounts, or can you raise your hand? Maybe type in chat if you have IUL. Pretty much everybody. Okay, so if you haven't got it yet, now is the chance. I'll give you more reasons why, right? Okay, let me share my screen real quick. I promise you, this is a topic that you probably never heard of. Because I just changed the topic, right? Right. It's called X plus IUL. Udaf, have you heard this topic before? No? Do you have any idea what it's about? Probably not, but you'll like it. You'll like it, I promise. Okay. What I mean by X plus IUL, because a lot of times, most people know what IUL is and how it works, but a lot of times people are struggling in a field, and people say, I have mutual funds, or I have real estate, I don't need IUL, right? I have 401k, I don't need IUL. They said I have 529, I set up for education fund, I don't need IUL. I have a long-term care policy, I don't need IUL, right? So in reality, really, IUL is not competing with anything else, with anything that you and your clients already have. IUL is completing their financial plan. Let me say that again. IUL is not competing with anything they have, it's completing with whatever they have. That's why I call X plus IUL, right? So I'll talk about 5 different aspects if we have time today. I think we should have time, right? So all the way from 401k to real estate to education fund and asset reallocation and long-term care. When you add an IUL on top of it, the whole plan completes and fix the risks, either risk or problem that the original plan might have. Okay, so let's start with a 401k. Let me see, how many people have a 401k? If you have a 401k, just type in 401k in chat, okay? Either have or had a 401k. Anybody? All right, I see some people have 401k, right? So about 401k, well, actually, sorry about that. Let me back up a little bit. So before I move on to individual topics, I kind of want to just quickly walk through the multifunctions of IUL, right? So it actually helps you grow your money professionally under 4 layers of protection. Long-term return, you get about 6 to 8%. In long-term, depending on the market as well, right? In the past 2-3 years, you might get even higher. And if you hit a downturn, it might get slightly lower, but overall, about 6 to 8%, okay? So first layer of protection is market risks. If anybody remember 2008, if you're in the United States in 2008, you remember everything went down pretty much, right? If you had a 401k, did you lose money in 2008? Of course, right? Did the stock lose money? Yes. Did the real estate lose money? Yes, right? Pretty much everything lost money. But IUL protects you at a floor at guaranteed 0%, some even a little higher than that, with a 15 to 20% cap, depending on which company you go with, right? The second layer of protection is sudden death or untimely death unexpected death of a family member, or sickness or disability. stop of income into the family, right? So if I had a son last year, and if anything were to happen to me, now I know that my wife and kids are protected by several $1 million of protection, and they don't have to pay tax on it, right? Third layer is tax, of course. We've been taxed pretty heavily, and I live in the state of Texas, and there's no state income tax, right? Anybody in California, anybody in New York, anybody in, I think Maryland has state income tax as well, right? 5 to 6%, something like that. North Carolina, what is it? 4.5, 4.6, something like that, right? So you never have to pay tax on the proceed of the IUL, and you can also have access to tax-free, cash value in the policy as well. And the last one is lawsuit, bankruptcy, all those legal protections that you can build up with an IUL. For I think 40 out of 50 states, IUL is not subject to lawsuit or legal pursuit or creditor pursuit and something like that. And for all 50 states, if you combine IUL with a irrevocable trust, we call it ILIT. And in the next couple of weeks, we can talk about that as well, right? It's called irrevocable life insurance trust. You can actually even shelter your money from lawsuit, bankruptcy, as well as estate tax and what's it called? Probate, right? So there's so many functions that it can do. It's almost like a Swiss Army knife, right? And you can actually build over $1 million, a couple $1 million, when you retire. It could be your rainy day fund, right? After a year or two, there's a surrender value that you can actually loan against or withdraw. You can use it for college fund. You can use it to, change your lifestyle. I've seen our clients, the funny thing is some people go into what's called a midlife crisis, right? Or late life crisis. They start buying, I guess sports cars and stuff like that. They might eat into their retirement funds. They might actually drain their retirement funds so that, they have to sell that sports car later on. They have no money to retire, right? But guess what? IUL can help you actually fund the kind of lifestyle you want, but you don't have to eat into your retirement funds, right? It could actually be more. Then the retirement funds is right here. And also, at some point in our lives, it's almost guaranteed that we might get sick, we possibly get into disability or long-term care situation where the cost is so high and Medicare doesn't cover you much. Medical insurance doesn't cover you at all, right? And most standalone long-term care insurances are use it or lose it. And with IUL, you can add a rider, you can use it or keep it, right? So there's so many different functions. We're going to focus on some of the, I guess, really talk about usages you can combine with stuff you already have and make both worlds better, okay? And leave a legacy eventually, okay? Now, so whenever we talk about IUL, try to picture this as a critical piece of the entire puzzle called family financial planning, right? So in financial planning, what we need are 4 different things. I didn't write on here. You can probably write your own notes, right? Number 1 is growth. We need our money to grow because if our money doesn't grow, guess what does? The cost of living does, right? The cost of living goes up because of inflation, stuff like that. And number 2, we need safety as well. We need some level of safety, especially for retirement funds. For those money we can't afford to gamble, right? We need those money to be relatively safe from market risk, from tax risk as well, which is also the third requirement is tax benefit. Because this is not for a 1 year or 2 year short-term money. This is for a midterm to long-term money. Then tax benefits, tax saving is definitely one of the necessities because if you have to pay tax now, over and over every single year, then it will eat into your investment or eat into your life savings, right? And the fourth one is what we called lifetime income or longevity of the money, right? People are living longer and longer, especially I think a lot of people online are from Nepal. And so I've heard that the closer you live to Mount Everest, the longer you're going to live, right? I don't know. But the thing is, people are living longer and longer. Statistically, every 10 years, the average life expectancy goes up by 1 year, right? Did you know that the average life expectancy for male in the United States is about 82 years old now, right? 82. That's average. That's 50 percentile, right? And females 5 years on top of that, so 87. And say, for example, I'm 34 this year. I know I look 44 or 24. I don't know, depending on which angle. But I'm 34, right? So whenever I got to 82, let's say 84, that's 50 years. So the average life expectancy is going to go up by 5 years. So by the time I get to 82, my life expectancy will be 87. I think I don't drink, I don't smoke. I think I can easily push it to 90, right? So the longer I live, the more money I'm going to need in my retirement. And there's no pension. I don't have any pension. I bet we have 124, 123 people online. I bet the people that have pension are probably less than 10, less than 20 statistically, right? Most people don't have unless you work for the government, right? And what happens if we outlive our money? That's the most scary thing, right? So those are our critical core needs for our money, but there's no single financial tool or financial vehicle that can actually cover all four grounds. What you need is actually, you don't need like 10 different accounts. You probably need 3 different type of assets so that all of those grounds are covered. I'll show you all 3, right? And the pros and cons. Number 1, 401k and IRA, right? So the necessity to have 401k and IRA, or if you have SEP IRA or, stuff like that, the pros are, first of all, a lot of people say you have 401k, then the company usually, the employer usually matches a portion of your contribution up to a certain percentage, right? So that's free money. Don't miss that. Also, you get a tax benefit of tax later. So you don't, we're getting close to the end of the year. You can still contribute to your 401k if you haven't maxed it out yet. You can still contribute to IRA to add to more deduction, right? Also, at the back end is flexible income. After 59 and a half, you can decide how much you want to withdraw from your 401k and IRA. And obviously, there's tax and everything consequences. So those are the pros. And the con is, number 1, there's no longevity, right? Flexible income and longevity, they don't coexist, actually, right? When you have flexible income, which means you can actually withdraw the money fast enough to exhaust it, then it doesn't guarantee lifetime income. And number 2, I guess downside is future tax risk. I'll talk more about that, right? So it's almost a known fact that in the next 10, 20, even 30 years, the tax rate, income tax, and pretty much all tax rates are going to go up because this country is in deep debt right now, right? So if you have to pay tax on the back end, like in 401k and IRA, then you're subject to an unknown future tax that is most likely higher, which takes away that control. Because think about this. Let's say if we get into business together, right? And we think that we are the only 2 business partners, but there's actually an invisible business partner, a third person, a third invisible business partner. And for all the works that we did, that guy gets to decide how much we get. And that guy is IRS, right? That guy is the Congress. Uncle Sam decides how much we get. How fair is that? We put in all the work and we don't even have any control of how much we can get, retain, right? So that's with 401k or IRA, all those we call tax later accounts. And the third one is market risk. Because you invest in the market either directly or indirectly, if the market goes down, you might lose your money as well. So pros and cons for 401k and IRA. The second part, I call it the 3 pillars, right, is what we call pension and annuities. Since almost nobody has pension anymore, I'll just put annuity right here. So the upside of annuity, first of all, is longevity. It's guaranteed lifetime income by contract, which means even if the annuity company goes bankrupt, somebody else buys this annuity company, they have to honor your contract as well. So you have a peace of mind that no matter what, this money will always have as long as you breathe, right? Tonight I go to sleep, tomorrow I wake up, I know I have annuity payment, right? The longer I live, the more I'm gonna get, right? So that's the one of the pro side. And another one is protected value, right? Most annuities have protected in your annuity value and in your lifetime income base. Some annuities, fixed index annuity, may even protect your cash value as well, right? But on the downside, because of longevity and protected value, all those benefits and tax deferral in accumulation as well, in annuity, it doesn't provide you with full flexibility. right? So if you want full flexibility, probably not, don't put everything here, but definitely this is necessary, okay? And also future tax risk as well, right? So at least the gain part in the annuity is taxable in the future, right? If you fund it with pre-tax money, the whole thing is taxable in the future. But during accumulation, it's not taxable. We can talk about annuity in the next couple of weeks as well, okay? And the third part, also very critical, where our main topic today is IUL, right? Tax code 7702. It's tax-free access. It's like a Roth IRA, but it's much bigger than Roth, much more flexible than Roth, right? Much more powerful than Roth. You can access the money without paying any federal income tax, right? And you never have to lose money because it's protected with a guaranteed floor, and it has a flexible income, just like a 401k. You decide how much you want to take out, or if you want to take out at all, right? But with, like I said, with flexible income comes no longevity, right? For IUL, you can easily, if you want to, you can actually take the whole thing out, or you can exhaust the money. Or actually, you can take money, out and you can put back in, right? It's all your flexibility. And one unique downside with IUL is the insurability, because essentially it is a life insurance, which means you have to have a relatively okay. You don't even have to have a really good health condition, but a relatively okay health condition. Say, for example, the past 5 years before you apply for an IUL, you can't have a cancer history, right? So to tell you what, the first person that really wanted to buy IUL was actually my mom, right? But guess what? I've been in the business for almost 10 years, and my mom only just, was eligible for IUL maybe 2-3 years ago, right? A couple of years ago, because I think starting from 1998 all the way lasted about 12-14 years. My mom had 4 different types of cancer, right? And she survived them all. My mom's a 4-time cancer survivor, right? And by the time I joined WFG, she still had, I think 2012, she still had thyroid cancer at the time, but she was cured later on. She had 8 or 9 major surgeries, so chemotherapies and radiation therapies, lots of treatment and stuff, right? She's very, very tough. But the thing is, nobody would insure her at that time. She would never get health insurance, life insurance, long-term care, no way, right? So she's been cancer-free for 6-7 years now, and she's eligible to apply. Although she most likely won't get a very good rate, but still she's going to get a pretty good deal, right? But the thing is, she lives in China. If she comes to the United States, she can actually get IUL, right? Anyways, so all 3 portion or all 3 type of accounts, it's necessity. It's very, very critical. You can't miss any of them, right? If you don't have a 401k and an IRA, you can set up a SEP IRA or simple IRA if you want to, right? If you don't have the first one, you miss out on the tax reduction. If you don't have the second one, there's no longevity in the money. If you don't have the third one, you don't have tax-free access. Everything becomes taxable. You become, losing control of the tax rate in the future. Okay, so that's why people need to have IUL, at least for that purposes. Okay, now, if you use IUL as an insurance, there's so many different functions, but mainly 2 different parts, right? You can use it for insurance purposes. You can use it for investment purposes. If you use it for insurance purposes, I guess the logic would be to put as little money as possible in exchange to as much life insurance coverage as possible. Make sense? Right? If you want insurance, put as little money as possible in exchange for as much insurance coverage as possible. Say, for example, if I put, say, $4,000, I'm just throwing numbers out there, right? Just $4,000 a year into the policy. And hypothetically, let's say the cost of insurance, which buys me the insurance coverage, is $1,000. Normally, the percentage wouldn't be this much, right? Just say, hypothetically. Now, cost of insurance is $1,000. My total premium is $4,000, which means I have $3,000, the difference, right? $3,000 would be growing, tracking the performance as index. And in the case of Transamerica, it's global index account is growing between 0.75 and 15%, right? Now, if I want to use it for investment purposes, right, on top of the insurance, I can actually put more money in as long as it allows me, right? So let's say if I can put up to $15,000 without going over to 7Pay, right? Now, the cost of insurance, hypothetically, it's still 1,000 or give or take, right? It doesn't affect it that much. But at this point, in this case, I don't have just $3,000 in investment. I have $14,000 in investment, right? It's a difference. And the $14,000 is growing between 0.75 and 15% tax-free, right? It used to be 3,000 tax-free investment. Now it's 14,000 tax-free investment. Some of you might ask, what is that shopping cart doing here? Here's an analogy. Let's say if you go to Costco, right? A lot of people shop at Costco. And if I give you a magical shopping cart, right? And I say, anything that you can fit in that shopping cart, it's free when you check out, right? Then what do? Do you just put one or two items, then rush to the line to check out because you want to save time? Or you stuff up that shopping cart as much as you can until it fills up, and then you go check out, right? So there's no magical shopping carts that doesn't cost you money, but there is a magical, I guess, a financial shopping cart that whatever you put into the policy can grow tax-free, right? So if you want to maximize the investment potential, then you want to put as much money as you can up to a certain level, right? You don't have to, max fund it to 7Pay to make it work, but as much as you can, then that's good, right? The thing is, with 401k, you can also have tax-deferred growth, right? But the thing is, there is a contribution limit in 401k, and this year, if you're under 50 years old, it's 19,500, right? So, in the IUL, essentially you can actually overfund over that amount, and many times over, right? So just to quickly go over, how much money can you put into an IUL policy, right? Say for example, this column right here, right? So on the bottom is cost of insurance. So a portion of the premium that you pay into the policy goes to cost of insurance. It gets you the coverage, make sure that your family is protected, right? And the rest of it, up to whatever amount you put in there, is investment. It's tax-free investment and it's flexible, okay? So the insurance company usually will, have a mandate of an annual minimum, right? So it's usually a little higher than cost of insurance so that it covers the cost of insurance and some, okay? And there's a recommended minimum called target premium, right? Also, it's also called commissionable amount. The agent's commission is calculated based off that as well, right? And all the way up to an annual maximum amount called 7Pay, okay? And that's determined by the IRS. Actually, good news, starting from January 1st, 2021, the 7Pay amount of most policies is almost doubled or even more in younger client situations, right? Without increase of the cost of insurance, which means the investment power gets even better, okay? The cost of investment, it's almost cut in half, right? So if the main purpose for the policy is for investment, then the strategy is to overfund the policy. Is to overfund the policy, right? Over what? Over minimum, over target. If you can, get to a 7Pay, get as close as possible or guideline. But the more money you put in there, especially in early years, the more helpful it is for you and your family, right? For your policy too, okay? So the money goes in there, the investment portion, after the cost and deductions taken out, right? It goes directly to what's called a basic interest account, depending on which company, depending on which product. Currently, it's somewhere between 2.75 and 3.5%, right? And then you can actually allocate among different index accounts, right? There are many different index accounts. There's so many different options, so many different flavors that you can mix and match. They make it so fancy now, right? The most commonly seen are S&P 500 annual point-to-point, multi-index monthly average, and there are uncapped strategies on S&P on stuff like that. And I think they're with new heights, you have volatility control index as well, okay? So that's the funding level inside of an IUL. Let's come back to 401k, right? For 401k contribution, if you're under, this is age 30 all the way to 70, right? If you're under 50, then the maximum is 19,500. And if you're 50 and above, you can fund an additional $6,500, right? And but the thing is, if we take a look at the same age group of a IUL plan, right? I'm just using a $1 million face amount as an example, right? So if you want 500,000, you can scale down to 50% of that. If you want 2 million, you can double, okay? Now, this is the number starting from January 1st this year. Remember these numbers, 19,000, 26,000, all the way, even if you're 100 years old, well, if you live that long, you can only fund to 26,000, right? That's if you have earned income. If you don't have earned income, you can't even put money in a 401k, right? But with a 7702 or an IUL, the situation is different. Even if you're 30 on the dot, even if you're 30, right? The annual maximum contribution for 7-pay is 57,000, almost as much as a SEP IRA max, which is 58,000 this year, right? And that's 7-pay per year. And the first 10 to 14 years, we call guideline single premium. The total amount you're allowed to put in there without turning into what's called a modified endowment contract, right? Without triggering any taxable event, is 194,000. Guess what? That's in the first 10 to 14 years, right? And you can actually, do it as fast as I'm looking at it about 3.5 years. 3.5 years, right? If you can max out 57 each year, in about 3.5 years, actually less than that, is almost $200,000 maximum you can put into the policy and let it grow all tax-free, right? At 40 years old, 69, 50 years old, 82, 60-year-old, 99, right? 70-year-old, 120. I'm missing a dollar sign right here. 120,000 per year and over $700,000 during the first 10 to 14 years, right? At 70-year-old, most people would not be working. Therefore, most likely they will not have a 401k. They will not be able to contribute in a 401k anymore. Actually, they've been taking money out, right? If you want to create a legacy and have it double, tripled, quadrupled into the next generation, all tax-free, 401k doesn't do that. Doesn't do that by itself, right? 401k, you can grow some money, and you have to worry about the future tax risks, right? When you take the money out, how much they're going to tax you, we don't know. Okay. Now, it's almost like this is a glass or a container, right? I have my water bottle or water jug right here, right? My wife bought it for me. It actually has 7 a.m., 9 a.m., 11 a.m., all the way until 7 p.m. how much water I should drink, right? So this is like 10, 12 bucks on Amazon. Pretty cool. Right. So for a 401k, maybe it's a small bottle, but this is my IUL, right? It's a huge water bottle. You can actually turn on the tap and put more water in it and have it growing. Okay. So it's like, twice, 3 times as much as how much you can put in a 401k. But again, like I said in the beginning, this is not to compete with 401k, but it's actually completing a 401k plan. For those of you who were in Houston last Saturday, I talked about hybrid strategy, right? So I'll talk about it again so that everybody know it, right? So with 401k comes what we call the 401k dilemma. So if you don't contribute to a 401k that you have, first of all, you miss out on the match. Second of all, you miss out on the deduction. But if you put too much money in 401k, you might end up paying more tax in the future because we don't know the tax rate, right? So should I choose tax later? Should I choose tax free? Here's the dilemma, right? Now, guess what? You don't have to have a dilemma, right? Because a lot of things we pretty much know. Say the tax rate, I'm talking about federal income tax rate, right? The marginal federal income tax rate, as shown here in the red line, right, has a close correlation with what we call a public debt to GDP ratio, right? Basically, how much in debt we are as a country versus how much gross domestic production or how much wealth we produce in a year as a country, right? So the gray shaded area represents the public debt to GDP ratio, and this red line is the highest marginal federal income tax rate. See, it used to be as high as 94%. Isn't that crazy, right? I don't think even California, even New York don't charge that much nowadays, right? It used to be 94%. If you make 100,000 in the 40s, you're probably one of the richest person in town, but guess what? You take home about $6,000 a year, right? Because the country is at war, right? That's the World War II. Now, when it used to be that when debt was really high, then the tax rate was high. When the debt is low, the tax rate comes down. However, ever since about 2000, 2001, what happened was the dot-com crisis, 9/11, all those things happened, right? And the debt rate went all the way up because America is at war again. However, the tax rate is pretty much just floating right close to the lowest historical average, right? So if you fast forward to now to 2021, the debt ratio is 126%, even worse than World War II. But the tax rate is still at 37%, leaving a huge gap that we've never seen in the past century, right? We've never seen in the past century. Now, first of all, the US government can't print money, right? Federal Reserve prints money, and the US government can't control Federal Reserve because it's a private bank, right? They can only get money from two major sources. Number one, they can issue government bonds to borrow money from other countries, mainly from, say, China, Japan, Korea, all those countries, right? Number two, then the only other major income source is to collect tax from you, from me, right? Now, China's not lending US more money anymore, so they can't borrow from outside source. They can only raise money by raising taxes, by raising tax rate, by raising, tax revenue, right? So tax rate will go up. It's a pretty much known fact in our industry, and will last in the next 10, 20, 30 years. If you're looking to retire in the next 10, 20, 30 years, if your kids are looking to grow up and go to work in the next 10, 20 years, guess what? Most likely they'll pay more tax than now, right? And I'll show you a website. If you can, on your phone or on your laptop, if you can log on to this website, let me show you real quick. I don't know how many people have never seen this before, but this is really fun, right? It's a public website, it's an official website, and it's a live one. And that's a live one, right? 1 second. Okay, there you go. All right. Can you see this, right? So if your internet allows you, you can see all those numbers are changing. All those numbers are changing, right? It's called usdebtclock.org. You can check on your own, right? Look at the top left corner. This is US national debt. How much is it? We're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4 different commas, right? So this is 1,000, million, billion, trillion. 28.9, almost 29 trillion in US national debt, almost 29 trillion, right? That's how much in debt we are. And guess what? How much tax we're collecting right here. Federal tax revenue, 4 trillion, 4 trillion. And if you pay closer attention, if you look at this green number versus this red number right here, the red number is growing even faster than the green number, which means for the tax we're collecting right now, for the speed, it's not even catching up with how much more debt we're getting as a country, right? Guess what? Tax rate has to go up to match that. And if tax rate goes up, it affects two different taxes. One is personal or individual taxes, and the other is corporate tax, right? Guess who pays more? Anybody want to take a guess? Individual or corporate? You want to put your answer in chat? Individual tax or corporate tax? Individual, right? Absolutely, it's individual, right? I'll tell you why. So out of these 4 trillion in tax revenue, guess what? Can you see it, that little hand over here? Corporate tax revenue is 363 billion, right? Which is 0.3 trillion, okay? 0.3 trillion. So which means, over 90%, over 95% of tax come from individuals. And if Biden was to rate, well, but it's not if, but when Biden raises tax rates, the most tax burden falls down to individuals. Another news, it's probably not news, but fact check if you didn't know this. A lot of things happened in 1913, a little over a century ago, right? In 1913, the US government started to charge individual income tax. Wow, it might become a surprise for you, right? Prior to 1913, there's no individual income tax. You make money, you don't pay tax. Your company pays tax. Corporate pays tax, right? 100% of tax burden falls onto the corporate. But guess what? Starting from 1913, individual has to pay income tax on their income. And guess what? Just a short century later, over 90%, 95% of tax burden has shifted secretly, quietly, gradually from corporate to individual. That's what's going on in this country, right? Don't be surprised in the future if 100% of tax burden goes on to individual. So what does it tell you and me, right? We need to save taxes. We need to avoid having to pay tax in the future, okay? Or at least not having control. But how do we do that? Let's say, for example, this is, hold on one second. Let me remove these. Okay, there you go. So this is the tax rate chart or tax bracket in 2020, right, from last year. For married couple filing jointly, right, if your joint income is $80,250 or less, the highest tax bracket is 12%. If you make $1 more than that, it goes into the 22% tax bracket, right? So it goes on stack up like that. And the if you make just $80,000 to $50,000, the total tax you're going to pay in that year is $9,235, right? So, you know, all deductions considered. Now, if let's say by the time I retire, I only have my income source coming from 401k or IRA or Social Security, anything that has to be taxed on the back end or has to be taxed on distribution. If I need, let's say, $150,000 to fund my retirement between my wife and I, right? So $150,000 in today's dollar, let's say, but I have to take more money. Excuse me. I have to take more money out of my 401k because I have to pay all those taxes, right? In fact, I have to take out $181,000 from my 401k and pay $31,000 in tax because I get into this tax bracket, 24%, right? 181 falls between 171 and 326. So I have to pay $31,000 in tax that year in order to get $150,000 into my bank account to spend that year, right? What if the tax rate goes up? Then I have to take even more money out of my 401k, right? Use up my 401k depleted even faster. If the government decides to raise the tax rate, I have no say. I have no control, right? I am up for grab. I am, you know, meat on the plate, right? I don't know what's the way to say that. But in order to get out of that dilemma, in order to gain control back into our hands, guess what? I don't have to rely solely on 401k. I can have two different income sources, two different types of account, right? I can have some money coming from 401k and the other account, make it an IUL or even a VUL or even a Roth IRA, anything that's non-taxable, that's tax-free distribution, okay? Two accounts. Now, I can take some money out of my 401k. How much? If the tax bracket looks like this, I'll only take out 80,000 because that will keep me beneath that 12% in income tax bracket, right? I will never touch the 22%. But if I need 150,000, what do? I take the rest of money from my IGIP, stand for investment grade insurance policy, right? In this case, IUL, okay? And that 78,000 is not taxable. Guess what? The total tax I'll pay that year is this $9,000, and I get 150,000, right? So each year between 9,000 and 31, I'm saving $22,000 in tax, right? Net tax saving each year. And if I spend 20 years in my retirement, I retire 65, I live until 85, guess what? I can save just on taxes $451,000, right? I can buy a nice home, probably about 3,500 to 4,000 square feet, nice home in Houston, Texas, or I can pay a down payment in California, right? So the point is, it's not about 400,000 or 500,000. The point is having control. If, let's say, some miracles happen, tax rate goes down in the near future, right? I can take more money out of my 401k. I can have control. That's the whole point. It's like, you know, having both hot and cold water, right? I'm having my shower remodeled right now. And what if I only have hot water and no cold water? Guess what? I'll be burned, right? What if I only have cold water? Guess what? I can never take a shower in the winter. If I have hot and cold, I can adjust temperature to the perfect temperature I'd like in my control. Control is the key word here, okay? That's what we call hybrid strategy. And this is 401k plus IUL. Make sense? I spent a lot of time here but I want people to understand, because a lot of people have 401k, and a lot of people don't have IUL. In my belief, anybody who has a 401k should have an IUL. Otherwise, you'll run into the either hot or cold situation. Okay. All right. Second, if you have any questions, I'll leave it at the end. We can have some Q&A at the end. Okay. The next part, real estate and IUL, right? I don't know about Nepalese people, but Chinese people, they love investing in real estate, and they love putting a lot of money in real estate. I guess probably because in the past century, Chinese people spent a lot of times at war, and the government took their land, took their house, or they have invaders and stuff like that. And when it's finally at peace, people love to own a brick and mortar home that they can actually live in and touch, right? And feel like they're a homeowner. Now, if you don't recognize this guy, his name is Robert Schiller, right? So if we're talking about real estate investment, I believe there's nobody more of an expert than Robert Schiller, because he is so much of an expert in real estate or in housing and everything. He actually got a Nobel Prize in economics in 2013, right? So actually, the main point is that the cost of land, construction material, and labor cost is pretty much on par with inflation, and it goes up over time, right? Here's the thing. A lot of people buy real estate or invest in real estate is because it appreciates over time, right? I buy a house in 300,000, later on it grows to 400, 500, 700,000. I sell it, I make money. But the thing is, if we sit down and really think about it, when your house appreciates, when your house price goes up, right? What is actually growing? Is it the material? I don't think so. Right? Our home was built in 2005, and the material only gets worse, right? It doesn't grow money. It grows mice, it grows termites, all those things, right? It doesn't grow money, right? What is appreciating is not the building material. It's definitely not the labor cost. It's already spent, right? It's actually the land. Right? The value of the land goes up. That's why the house of your house, the price of your house goes up, right? And the value of the land in long term overall pretty much is the same rate as inflation. Okay, let's take a look. I want you to take down this website. It's very, very useful. It's called www.fhfa.gov, right? It stands for Federal Housing Finance Agency, right? So this is the official and the most accurate number of how fast your house is appreciating. Okay, so I know some people are drawing on the screen. Let me clear that. Got it. Okay. Let's take a look at this. This is what's called the consumer price index, right? Everything goes up with inflation over time. This is the past 20 years, 21 years actually, from year 2000, right? So if you look at the very bottom, is actually apparel, right? The cost of shoes and clothes and everything. It's seasonal. Over long term, adjusted for inflation, it's pretty much the same. So for all our lady friends, right? I don't know how much you spend on Birkins, how much you spend on Hermes and Louis Vuittons. All those things, they don't appreciate that much. Over time, it's pretty much the same, okay? And the fastest growing one is actually college tuitions and fees. Every season, every semester, it goes up, and it goes up the fastest, right? If we look at housing, it's right on par with inflation, right in the middle, right? Even medical care goes faster than that. Even other goods and services goes faster than housing, right? If you check the website I just gave you, FHFA, right? Every quarter is going to publish a chart that shows you that each state, each metropolitan area, even each major city, how fast the real estate is increasing. Okay, so if we look at all of these things since quarter Q1 1991, this is how you're going to calculate right here. If you look at U.S. average, hold on one second. Let me share the screen again so I don't have the lag. Okay, that's better. That's better. If you look at US average, right? So it's growing from 1991 to 2020, right? How many years is that? 29 years, right? 29 years. It has gone up 182.57%, which means if the house was worth 100,000 back in 1991, it is worth 282,000 now, right? So it's gone up 182%. Okay, so instead of 100,000, it becomes 282,000, right? And you can reverse engineer and calculate the annual appreciation rate, annual compounding rate. I did this for you already. In California, and the annualized rate return is 3.88. Texas, 3.97, right? This is statewide, right? Some individual house might go faster or slower than that. I see a lot of people in Maryland, 3.38. Oregon, probably one of the fastest here, is still less than 6%, still 5.41%, right? It's not that high. US average right here, 3.65% US average. And if you go to some of the major metropolitan areas, right? Austin, Texas, we're looking at, Houston, Woodlands and everything. And you can check your own area, right? You can check your own area. See the highest somewhere around here, right? San Francisco, 5.456%. Chicago, 2.87%. Is actually even slower than inflation, even slower. Make sense, right? The last 29 years. Because if we really get down to the details of real estate investment return, say for example, I'm using one of the houses in Houston, right? The house price, let's say, is $450,000, and if you take out a mortgage of 30 years at a 4% fixed rate, nowadays it's much lower than that. I think you can refinance and get a 2.5, 2.7%, or as much as 3 to 3.5% right now, right? Let's just use 4 as an example. And let's say, for example, if you rent the house out and you get about $2,300 in rent, that's not bad at all. You pay about 1.25 in property tax, and if you live in Texas, it's probably higher than that, right? And other miscellaneous, home association, insurance, maintenance, right? All those things. And let's factor in 0.5%. Okay. Now, two different scenarios. Excuse me. You can either purchase, the house with all cash down, right, which means zero loan. In this case, the money you get, first of all, is the rent, right? Let's say $2,300 times 10. Why don't I use 12 right here? Because if you ever been a landlord, you know that you can't factor in. You can't count on every month you have a tenant, right? Even if every month you have a tenant, when this tenant moves out and the contract is the lease is up, you need to remodel, you need to clean up, you need to actually maybe change your AC. Hopefully you don't have to, right? It's going to cost you a month or two on average. Let's say 10 months you have tenants, right? And divided by the house price is 5.1%. And it appreciates on average, you saw, about 3%. You can put 4 here as well if you want to, right? And the minus right here, number 1 is property tax, right? Number 2, 0.5%, all those maintenance and stuff like that. And also, you're going to factor in something called opportunity cost. A lot of realtors don't do that, and that's a major mistake that people make, a major overlook. That what I mean by opportunity cost is that the money, that $450,000 that you put into the house, that money doesn't grow, right? The house price does go up with the land appreciate, but the money doesn't grow. The house doesn't help the money grow at all, right? Instead of putting it here, you can actually put it somewhere else. If it just keeps up with current inflation, it grows by 5%, right? That $450,000 goes up by 5%. Some people say, my house is appreciating. If I put that $450,000 into the house, I'm making money too. That's true. That's true. That the house still appreciates, the house price still goes up, even if you pay half down. Even if you pay 20% down, the house still grows at the same speed, right? It has nothing to do with how much money you have in there. Now, so plus, minus, your net return is about 1.35% in this scenario. And you can change the number, that number might change, but it's still somewhere between 1% to 3% net return, right? 3% would be a pretty good situation. Now, on the other end, let's say instead of paying cash down, most people don't do that, right? Especially if you have multiple rental home, right? I put 25% down. Right. This is not a primary residence. You don't live in there. So the down payment usually requirement is a little higher, right? 25% down payment, 75% in loan. Now, in this case, the rent is the same. Appreciation is the same. Property tax, everything's the same. Now, on the minus side, I have to add 3% in interest, right? 3% in interest here because I have a mortgage here, okay? Now, why do I put 3% instead of a 4% mortgage interest in the example? Because I didn't borrow 100%, right? I borrowed 75% of the loan. Now, 75% of that 4% 30-year fixed loan is 3, which is why I put 3 here. Make sense? Okay. Now, opportunity cost is a little less as well. Instead of a 5% opportunity cost, I only have 25% down. So opportunity costs only factor in 25%. In this case, 25% of 5 is 1.25%. I hope all these numbers is not making you dizzy, right? If you don't understand fully, that's okay. That's okay. By the way, I'll send this slides to Udaf, so you can discuss it later on, right? So in this scenario, since I'm borrowing 75% in loan, my net return is actually higher because of less opportunity cost, right? So that's the actual situation. But guess what? There's also labor, right? So we're actually remodeling our shower, and it's costing me what? $16,000. Can you believe that? $16,000 labor and material and all those things. It takes about 3.5 days. I'm going to recruit those people. I'm definitely going to recruit when they finish up, right? And capital gain tax as well, right? So when you sell the house, that appreciation 5.1%, 3% right here, right? You have to pay capital gain tax. And guess what? When you sell a home, you have to pay closing cost, right? You have to pay agent commission. All those things will eat into the net return. Which is already not that high. Make sense, right? So what if you have a not so good tenant, right? And you can't collect the rent and it's past due. Some say if you never went to the eviction court, you're not a real landlord. So for those of you who are landlords, you know what I'm talking about, right? And the taxes and guess what? If you have a lot of money, a lot of equity in the house, that affects the eligibility for your kids to go to college, not for admission, but for financial aid, right? So a lot of pros and cons you need to factor in, okay? Now, today, my topic is X plus IUL. We talk about real estate investment, right? If you like real estate investment, good for you, no problem. But guess what, right? Combine that with an IUL. I call it a financial real estate or financial house, okay? Say, for example, if you have a rental home, right, or investment property, and you pay about 1 to 2% property tax or 3% in taxes, right? I'm going to compare or make an analogy between a rental house and an IUL, right? I'm building a IUL financial house with Nationwide, for example. Okay, so on the left side, you have property tax. On the right side, you have insurance charge. Right? It used to be 0.5 to 1%. I should change that actually. I should totally change that because starting from January 1st this year, over long term, you're looking at 0.1 to 0.3% in net long-term annual charges, right? Much lower now if you overfund the policy, okay? And on the left side, you have HOA fees, you have miscellaneous costs and labors and everything. Let's say call it 0.5%, right? And loan interest rate, mortgage rate, somewhere between. I need to update that. I'm going to call it 2.5 to say 3.5% just to stay current. Okay. And that's for a 30-year loan. Okay. So that's the cost to borrow money, right? And can you borrow money from an IUL? Absolutely. Absolutely, right? And the low interest rate in the first 10 years is less than 1%. It's either 0.75% or 0.9%. And in the case of Pacific Life, it's even lower than that, right? After 10 years, it's a 0% washed out net 0% interest rate, right? So it's a 0% is almost like interest-free loan, and you can choose whether to pay it back or not. You can choose how much you pay back as well. We'll talk about that later. Okay, and equity growth in the house about 3 to 4% over long term. We just saw that. Right, equity growth in the financial house 6 to 8%. Okay, and you can have a cash flow of what we call cash flow, right? Rental income, let's say 5 to 6%, if you have always have tenants and the tenants are good, right? And you can have liquidity that doesn't limit 5 to 6%. You can borrow more if you want to. If you can withdraw some of them as well, right? And it's risk-free, and it's tax-free, and it's maintenance-free, and it's worry-free, okay? To qualify for an IUL house, well, there are some qualifications. First of all, you need to be relatively healthy. So start early. Start while you're still healthy, right? Don't wait, because you never know which comes first. Whether it's tomorrow or some accident or something like that, right? And you're gonna have some discipline, right? Think long term, because the short-term liquidity isn't that good, right? The first 2 years, you're not going to have too much in cash surrender value. Same thing with a house, right? The first couple of years, actually the first 10 years, if you start a brand new mortgage of 30-year, right? The majority of the money you pay in is not going to be going into equity. It's going to be going to the interest, right? Same thing. Probably in the IUL case, it's even better, okay? Now, how do you combine those two? Say when you have an actual house, right? Let's say in the case of a mortgage, right? You build up equity gradually, and your mortgage gets less and less and less and less. And by the time you pay off your mortgage, it's full equity in there, right? I drew the house a little bit bigger because the house may appreciate over time. Okay, so that's timeline. Now in a financial house IUL, you have a house, right? And you build up cash value, right? So similar to equity, you build up cash value, which you can borrow against, you can actually loan, right? And the insurance, the pure insurance portion, we're talking about a level death benefit design, right? Gets less and less and less and less, but it doesn't go down to zero. They still keep a tiny little bit, right? Because of something called corridor, something called, all those tax rules, right? I'm not going to get into details right now. You can have a much larger amount of cash value, a much larger size of a house, a financial house in IUL, because as your cash value goes up, it might push your death benefit, to over the original amount. Okay, right? And some people say, well, if I invest in real estate, I can do what's called a 1031 exchange. I don't have to pay tax when I sell the house if I buy a bigger one or if I buy, multiple home afterwards, right? Yes, you can do that. You can buy it from a smaller house to a bigger one, to an even bigger one, right? 40 years, 50 years, 70 years old, right? But here's the thing, the tax problem is only delayed but not solved. The tax problem is only delayed but not solved, because you have to have an exit strategy, right? Where is the exit, right? 70-year-old, 80-year-old, 90-year-old. I just told you my life expectancy for me is 90 years old and maybe higher, right? If I live to 90, if I live to 95 and I pass away, I still have to pay tax. Guess what? Either come from money if I have at that point, or the tax burden falls onto my son, my wife, and whoever survives me, right? It's only delayed, is not solved. And guess what? The Biden administration even have a proposal to discontinue the 1031 exchange tax benefit. You can't do that anymore, right? And they're going to take away the step up in cost base as well, right? Which makes this strategy even less attractive to real estate investors, okay? Whereas in the case of a financial house in IUL, you can build up cash value, right? Over a long term, you get about 5 to 7 or 6 to 8% in return, right? It's maintenance free, risk free, worry free, and tenant drama free. I have so many clients that have so many horror stories that they told me about tenants, right? One of my clients in Southern California had a really good, quote unquote, good tenant that rented his house for 4 or 5 years now, never late on payment, right? Never late on payment, never had any trouble, never caught him to fix anything. But one day he just disappeared. And the next thing he knew, the police showed up at his rental home, and it turned out they were growing marijuana, growing weed inside of his house, right? and the whole house is destroyed. And no money come back to him. The insurance doesn't cover that, which is crazy, right? Lots and lots of those stories. In a financial house, there's none of those. Okay. Say, for example, if you're 45 years old, male, right, and you fund this policy for 6 years, the total deposit, I'm looking at 7Pay, about 47%, 7,000, right? So in all 6 years, the total deposit is 250,000, and you get, from day one, you get $1 million policy, right? This is how it works. You can easily take the cash out if you want to, right? Whereas in the actual house, the cash is hard to take out, right? What you can do is you can take a home equity line of credit. You have to be subject to approval. There's interest on that. The interest rate is usually higher than your normal primary mortgage, right? It's hard to take cash out, right? We can take a reverse mortgage. There's tons of requirements on that. It's even more difficult, right? But combined with real estate plus IUL, this is what you can do. You have an actual house that you're renting out, right? You can use that rental income. Don't put that rental income into your bank account. Put that, because in a bank account, even in a savings account, even if in a CD, you don't get much interest nowadays anyways, right? Put that rental income towards an insurance payment or premium payment into an IUL to fund your financial house, okay? And later on, if you want to, if you need to, you can either withdraw or loan to from the cash value to put a down payment and a next retirement, next rental home if you want to, right? Or if you change your primary residence, you can do that as well, right? Once it accumulates enough cash value. And you have an exit plan. Once you sell that rental home, you can use the net proceeds of the house sale to refill your IUL. Since you borrowed loan already, right? You have the right to put the money back, right? To refill, to repay the loan you borrowed at possibly either a very low interest rate, less than 1%, or no interest rate, right? You can refill the IUL. It's almost like a refill at McDonald's. If you don't throw away the cup, you can actually refill Coke, right? Refill soda, okay? And you can use that money for retirement, for education. You can leave a legacy. It's a lot of things you can do, okay? So this is what we call real estate plus IUL. They can actually help each other. They don't compete with each other. They can help each other and make both worlds better, okay? Third part, education planning plus IUL. Lots of you have kids. Most of you want, pretty much all of you want to put your kids through college, but the college expense, the college cost is growing the fastest, as we just saw, right? So for example, I'm using Stanford as an example. It's a very prestigious private university. It also costs a lot as well. But guess what? Most people don't have to pay the ticket price, right? The ticket price goes up, but the net cost, look at this column right here. The average net cost is really not that high if you plan well, right? So let's look at, let's say, for example, this line right here. If your family income, gross family income is no more than 215,000, you have about 84% of a chance to qualify for financial aid. I think this is from last year, right? And the average net cost is only 41,000 instead of 70 to 80,000, right? You get about 26,000 in scholarship and grant. Most of them you don't have to pay back, right? Under 155,000, there's 99% of chance. 100 people apply, 99 will get approved, and each of them will get paid 41,000 each year, right? So a lot of financial aid that's available. Because if you look at FAFSA, starting from October 1st, FAFSA start to accept applications this year, right? So if you look at this, you can Google FAFSA instructions 2021 or FAFSA instruction 2022, and you're going to find this in the fine print, right? Because when they're evaluating your eligibility for financial aid, both for FAFSA and CSS profile, some of the asset types are not considered investment, are not included. For example, the home you live in for public schools is not it's not included. The value of life insurance, cash value inside of life insurance, has no impact in financial aid. So when you're thinking about saving money for a kid's college expenses, this is actually a pretty good way to save. Also, if your kids are closer to college, this is a very good vehicle for you to shelter most of the money so that they will not affect your eligibility for financial aid. Okay? I'm not going to go into too much details. Okay, so this is one example we actually did for one of our clients. Now, for the academic year 2019 and 2020, the total cost is $75,800 after tax money, right? Total annual cost. That includes tuition, room and board fees, and books and all those things, right? Yeah. So if, let's say, a family income, 150,000, that's their family income, and they have $150,000 in their bank accounts, and they have a combined retirement and pension value, a pension savings in 401k mostly of 200,000, and some non-retirement investment of 450,000. That includes their stocks, mutual funds, ETFs, all those things. That includes their rental home as well, right? And are considered in state. Now, in this case, the student and parent contribution is $49,500, right? So they can get about 23 to 25,000, 26,000 in need-based scholarship. Okay. So what we need to do is to reduce the exposed asset or included asset, which are the 150,000 in cash, also 450,000 in non-retirement investment. Okay. And you can actually shelter that money inside of an IUL. So in this case, we're going from 150,000. We took, we leave some money. Let's say we leave about 35,000 in cash just for emergency fund. The rest of the money, let's shelter in IUL, right? And not only we shelter the money, but also we can actually get more life insurance coverage, more long-term care coverage for the family, for the parents, so the family is better protected, right? Non-retirement investment, we put in IUL as well. Guess what? In this case, the family contribution or the student and parent contribution goes all the way from 49,000 all the way down to 27,000, right? So the need-based scholarship goes from 23,000 all the way up to 46,000. So each year they're saving about 23,000 in financial aid. Okay, so 4 years, over almost $100,000 savings. So you don't have to spend money to save. You can actually save money to save. Save money in IUL. Also, at the same time, it saves money in education, right? So that's education planning plus IUL. This is a short topic. We can get into a specific topic just on this on this subject in the later date. Okay. Now, next one, asset reallocation. We talked about refill just now. I'll get into a little bit of details and show you exactly how it works. Okay, so let's say if I have an IUL account, right? And before I retire, I can put money in slower or faster as much as I want, right? I can, as much as I want actually, so I can get the tax benefit, investment benefit over the years. Let's say by the time I'm 67, I retire, I can start taking tax-free retirement income from the IUL account, right? In the forms of a 0% loan, okay? Let's say hypothetically, I take out about 71,000 per year. And after 14 years, by the time I'm 80 years old, the total I'm taking out is $1 million, right? A little over $1 million. Now, at this point, I have my home, and most people in their 80s would downsize their home. I have clients in their 80s. I have clients even in their 60s and 70s, even in their mid 50s. Whenever they send their last child off to college, and people would downsize their home because they don't have to live in a school district that's where the house price is expensive. They don't have to live in a 5-bedroom home, right, just for the two couple, right? They don't have to live in a 2-story home where you have to go down and up the stairs, right? They usually downsize their home. But the thing is, when you sell a home and buy a smaller one, you're gonna have a portion of the money that you don't know where to put, right? Say, for example, I bought this home, let's say at 500,000, and over the years, in the next 20, 30 years, it appreciates to, let's say, $1 million, right? Once I sell the home, right, and I sell my $1 million home, and I, buy a $200,000, $300,000 retirement home, right? I'm going to have about over $500,000 of cash, right? From that proceed. I don't know where to put. If I put it in a bank, it depreciates, right? It's eaten up by inflation. If I put it in the stock market, now I'm in my retirement. I have fear. I don't want my money to lose, right? And I can't even put the money back into a 401k because there's limit on there. I look on the left side, I look on the right side. There's no better place to put in money, right? But guess what? I just remembered, right? Over the years from 67 to 80, I borrowed over $1 million from my 401k for retirement income. I can actually put the money back there, right? I put the money back there, let's say $1 million, for example, it continued to grow again, right? It's called asset reallocation. In this case, for example, this is a 40-year-old client, healthy male. The first 5 years, actually 4.5 years, he's funding his IUL account, right? Maximum amount, $36,000 per year. And the total amount he put in there, $162,000, okay? And from day one, he has a death benefit coverage of $1 million. Now, fast forward until 67. 67, he's taken out $71,000 for retirement income every single year, all the way until 80, right? So total amount, $1 million in this case, all tax-free, right? Ignore the Chinese over here. I didn't have time to translate it, right? So this says tax-free retirement income, right? From 67 to 80. Now, at the end of year age 80, I have a leftover cash value of $332. If I don't want to put the money back in, I don't have to. Guess what? I enjoy my retirement all tax-free, right? So that's pretty cool. But guess what? I can actually put the money back. Right? At 81, when I sell the home, I put up to $1 million back. Guess what? I still have over $1 million in life insurance. I can leave a very nice legacy. I live all the way until 90. I can leave 1.3 million. I live all the way until 95, 1.5 million. I lived up to 100, 1.7 million, all tax-free, right? If that money goes to my bank account, it's probably spent or depreciated. Or, when it comes to the next generation, it's probably taxed as well, right? But guess what? I can put this amount into a irrevocable trust. I don't even have to pay estate tax, right? I can plan it very beautifully. Make sense? After the house sale, right? I refill it. It's flexible access. I can take as much as I want, as fast as I want, as slow as I want. It's all up to me. And the thing is, even in my 80s, I have the guts, I have the courage to invest because it's all protected. No matter what the market does, I never had to worry about losing money, right? Most people, not even in their 80s, in their 70s and 60s, they don't dare investing because they don't want to lose money, right? In this case, you don't have to worry about it, okay? Last topic, long-term care. So most people, if you have house, most people have homeowner insurance, right? The chance of claiming a homeowner insurance is usually 1 in 1,200, 1 in 1,000, right? So from all your neighbors, over 1,000 houses, usually one every year will claim homeowner insurance, either on fire or flood or structural damage, okay? Everybody own cars, everybody have car insurance, and the chance of claiming car insurance is 5 times of that, is 1 in 240. Guess what? What are the chances in long-term care? What are the chances that you're going to claim long-term care insurance, or are you going to need long-term care? 1 in 2. 1 in 2, right? For all of you married, look at your wife, look at your husband. It's either you or the other person, right? So everybody has house insurance, everybody has car insurance, but a lot of people don't have long-term care insurance. It's almost like if you buy a new car today and I tell you, right, there's a 50-50 chance next year that car is going to get into a car accident, right? Are you going to not get car insurance? Of course not, right? You're definitely going to get car insurance if you know the odds are that high, right? So you can actually have multiple ways of providing that long-term care insurance, right? Either by a traditional long-term care insurance, but the downside is it's used or wasted, right? If you're the 50% of never needing long-term care, right? You're wasting your money. Or you can have a 7702 IUL plus a long-term care rider, right? It provides you with death benefit, living benefit, and long-term care if you need it. and it's much more affordable because it's built on top of a life insurance policy already, right? So you're never going to lose it, right? Use it or keep it, right? So, and some people are still asking me, will I need long-term care? Well, guess what? For this statistically in 2020, right? For everybody over 65, there's over 70% of a chance of needing long-term care, right? And that amount in 2020 is 12 million people in the United States, right? So that's an odd that I will not bet that I don't need long-term care, right? If there's 70% of chance needing long-term care, I'm definitely getting prepared, right? And the truth is, there are 40% of people that are currently using long-term care, the long-term care recipients, over 40% is between age 18 and 64, right? It's not really for older people, it's for everybody, right? It's for everybody. I have a college roommate that actually qualified for long-term care in his 20s because he got into a motorcycle accident, right? He's my age, okay? Now, how do you combine long-term care plus IUL, right? We call it X plus IUL, right? Say, for example, this is a 50-year-old male, right, getting a $500,000 policy. Now, he can fund the policy in 5 years, let's say as much as 28,000, or he can drag it to 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, as fast or slow as he wants, right? So in 5 years, let's say hypothetically, he put in 141,000, okay? Starting from day one, he has $500,000 in death benefit coverage. $500,000 can be used for long-term care as well, okay? Now, at that point, let's say all the way he lives up to 80, at 81, he can retire and have 666,000, even more than the original amount in cash value. He can use it for whatever he wants. Or if he passes away at 81, he has almost $700,000 in life insurance coverage benefit, tax-free to his family. Or if he needs long-term care, there's a total of $500,000 he can use for long-term care, which translates to up to 2% per month, which is over $10,000 per month, right? Over $120,000 per year for long-term care, right? So it's almost like one dish, 3 different ways of eating it, right? So if you ever had Peking duck, right? So you can eat it, you can use the roasted duck, you can eat, I think they have a stir-fried duck with vegetables, you can have a duck soup as well, right? So one portion of money, and you can use it for multiple purposes, okay? So in summary, right? So a lot of people see the tip of an iceberg, but they don't see what's beneath the water. Under the water, it's much, much bigger, right? That's the IUL we're talking about. A lot of people only see the visible charge that's above water, but beneath the water, there's safety guaranteed, there's growth, short-term and long-term, and it's tax-free throughout. There's flexibility in the cash value. There's protection from the beginning. There's long-term care we just talked about, right? There's a legacy you can leave to the family that's multiplied, right? Double, triple, quadrupled, and there's privacy. Nobody has to know you have this money. It's protected from all I guess legal protection as well, right? Eventually, that's a peace of mind. Okay, that's the end of my training today. I think that's what, an hour and a half? Cool. Let's get into the Q&A.